Regular viewers of my channel will know that I think the version of Batman seen in Batman the Animated Series is the definitive take on Batman. The creative team of that show took the established comic book continuity and stripped away all the unnecessary guff and made changes to characters to better serve the stories they wanted to tell. As much as I adore the comics, man, there have been some real dross over the decades. And I really appreciated how the shows of the DC animated universe had the philosophy of highlighting the best stuff, enhancing the okay elements, and dropping the bad stuff entirely. So you can probably understand why I'm quite optimistic about DC's new line of comics, Absolute Batman, Absolute Wonder Woman, and Absolute Superman, which promise to be entirely new takes on these established characters, without the baggage of nearly 100 years of continuity. Now, the cynic in me finds myself wondering if all these new interpretations of Batman, also see Batman Caped Crusader, are Warner Brothers trying to reinvent the character ahead of him going into public domain in about 10 years. Still, even if that is the case, we're eating pretty good right now. The Absolute line of comics has been designed to be the best jumping on point if you've ever wanted to get into reading the comics, but have felt overwhelmed by all that continuity. These comics are a complete break from everything that came before, for the most part. We'd see the birth of the Absolute Universe in the pages of the DC All-In special, a story told from two perspectives. First, from Superman alongside the new expansive Justice League. The second, from Darkseid. It's kind of ironic that this brand new fresh jumping on point is initially so mired in the previous continuity, but the good news is you don't have to know everything that happened in the All-In special to enjoy Absolute Batman. The long story short is, oh boy, I'm using the word short quite liberally here, the mainline DC continuity has been cut off from the multiverse, which causes Darkseid to have something of a personal crisis. Darkseid is a being that exists across the multiverse, so getting shut off from it is akin to him losing a limb or two. In his quest for knowledge, Darkseid bound himself to the Spectre, fought the Justice League, who fought to free the Spectre, which resulted in Darkseid's death, which is exactly what Darkseid wanted. He found himself reborn in this other raw universe, which he was able to shape in his own image. He is effectively the Absolute Universe's god, and as a result things are quite different for our heroes. But you don't need to know any of that going into Absolute Batman. There's no gigantic Darkseid in the sky looking down at people passing judgment. It's not like there's a whole religion based on Darkseid in this universe, or if there is, we haven't seen it yet. Instead, it's a cruel, selfish world where the decent, everyday people struggle and the heroes are at a disadvantage from the offset. So with all that out of the way, let's talk about this first issue of Absolute Batman and 5 of the key things that leapt out at me. First of all, this story is, for the most part, told from Alfred's perspective. Now, Alfred is not a butler, he's a spy, and he has come to Gotham to gather intel on a gang that is rampaging through the streets. The Party Animals. Who he's gathering intel for is not disclosed, but it seems to be some sort of shadowy agency. He's also told about a third party that seems to be intervening and is given permission to engage him, but only him. This new version of Alfred is a soldier, someone that has no problem at all with killing people, and is a deadbeat dad. We see him leaving his estranged daughter Julia a voicemail. Yes, they're still trying to make Julia Pennyworth a thing. And I like the small hints they make about Alfred being a bit insubordinate and having people's best interests in mind. When he sees the Party Animals trying to massacre the police, he asks for permission to engage and is denied. When the Batman debuts and beats them all senseless, he is ordered to stop Batman, but waits until he's defeated the Party Animals before engaging. Similarly, it takes Alfred a very short amount of time to figure out who Batman is and where he hangs out. Of course, Batman still gets the better of him. The next thing to note is that they've made a number of changes to Bruce Wayne. He's not a wealthy socialite. His parents had normal jobs, a teacher and a social worker. He lives in Crime Alley. Likewise, the tragedy that gave birth to Batman is very different, and this is probably the most significant change to the Batman backstory, so once again, spoilers ahead. Young Bruce was on a school trip to Gotham Zoo when a man with a gun went on a rampage. His father, his class's teacher, shut all of the kids in the bat enclosure, telling them to keep the door shut, and seemingly perished hiding them. Now, the reason Batman feels guilt is because he won a competition and the prize was this trip to the zoo. So he feels responsible for everyone being there and the death of his father. We see from Alfred's files that Bruce went off the rails a little after his father died, getting into trouble with the law before settling down and going to college to become an engineer. This brings to mind the young Terry McGinnis from Batman Beyond, who lost his father and had been a bit of a tearaway after his parents divorced. Much like Terry, Bruce's mother is still alive and trying to do her best to improve the situation in Gotham. During a fiery meeting at the town hall, the citizens of Gotham chastise Mayor Gordon and Commissioner Bullock for their inability to do anything about the party animals. Batman's mother attempts to calm the angry crowd, but is interrupted by the party animals' attack. The third thing to talk about is this Batman. He's absolutely massive. People are already calling him the Batman who lifts, which is doubly funny given that the writer Scott Snyder co-created The Batman Who Laughs. When Batman engages the party animals, he's absolutely ruthless, but Alfred notes that he holds back just enough so as to not kill anyone. There is one scene that I've seen a lot of people discussing where Batman slices a party animal's hand off with an axe made out of his bat symbol. The important context here is that the party animal states that he had used that hand to murder a lot of people, so Batman removes it as punishment. He tells him that if he hurries to the nearest hospital, they might be able to save the hand. So it's not like this Batman is callously murdering criminals. Everything he does is calculated. Alfred notes that when he stabs criminals, he strikes with precision, avoiding any organs or major arteries. His violent acts are intended to shock and scare criminals, and ultimately save lives. This is perfectly illustrated when Batman steals Alfred's advanced shotgun and turns it into a non-lethal version that shoots little bats, which he wonderfully demonstrates when he shoots Alfred in the face with it before stealing his bike and riding off of a skyscraper. My fourth takeaway is the party animals, who seem to be a group of disenfranchised people that are lashing out at the establishment. They target the police, a daycare, city hall, everything that represents the establishment, and they want to burn it all down. Their leader is Roman, who I presume is Roman Sionis, and in the mainline comics was the villain Black Mask. Roman spends his days hanging out on a luxury cruise liner, listening to obnoxiously loud music. His meeting with the heads of the crime families, Carmine Falcone and Sal Maroni, is pretty interesting because they came to Roman telling him to respect traditions and get his gang to back down. Roman responds to this by murdering both Falcone and Maroni and creating death masks from their faces to keep in his personal collection. Roman is very clearly a wealthy figure. He has a massive boat where the party doesn't seem to end. In a bleak and miserable world that is the creation of Darkseid, it's easy to see why people might abandon all hope and try to lose themselves in euphoria. It's a quick way to mask their despair, and I'll be interested in seeing if that gets embellished anymore in future issues. Finally, let's talk about some of the other villains that appear in the book. Firstly, we have Waylon Jones, who we know as Killer Croc. Here he isn't some scaly mutant reptile man. He's a gym owner that has an affinity for reptiles and mentions that he's opening an exotic pet store with childhood friend Ozzy. And that's another big change. Several characters that we are familiar with, Harvey Dent, Edward Nygma, Selina Kyle, Waylon Jones and Oswald Cobblepot, were all childhood friends of Bruce Wayne, and they're still in touch. While Waylon is presented as a decent person, it is suggested that Ozzy is involved in crime, but we'll have to see what happens with the other characters. The final villain that we see is a man who is colloquially known as Joker. He's a billionaire, one of the top 30 richest people on the planet, and he famously does not have a sense of humour. It is seemingly impossible to get him to laugh, hence the ironic nickname. It's suggested that he was involved in some shady things. I mean, really, you have to be in order to have that much wealth. And it is suggested that he had previously been under investigation by Alfred. And this is quite a smart inversion of Batman and Joker. Batman is the everyday person with nothing, while Joker is a wealthy head of industry. By being an everyday citizen of Gotham, this Batman already has a new dynamic that is arguably more relatable than an isolated billionaire that manages his feelings of despair by punching people. If you couldn't tell, I enjoyed this first issue and I'm interested in seeing how things develop. I'm also going to be checking out Absolute Wonder Woman and Absolute Superman in the coming weeks. Did you pick up Absolute Batman? What do you think about the Batman who lifts? I noticed that he also swears. Can we call him the Batman who swears? Probably not, I don't think that'll catch on. Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to do all the usual YouTube stuff. Feed the gaping maw of the algorithm by liking the video, sharing, leaving a comment, or even clicking on the bell button to make sure you never miss a future video. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this.